I tell you what I am concerned about, and that is if Congress and the judiciary doesn't do something soon about the FBI and the Justice Department, we are on our way to becoming a fascist nation and a police state. Our founding fathers never intended us to have a national police force who could just decide to go after people they didn't like. And that's what RICO and mail fraud and some of these other statutes have been used for. Something's got to be done to change that around, or we will not be a free people much longer. Hey, Jonathan.
Hey, Vic.
Man, it's great to be back. I've missed you.
You've returned to us beardless.
I have. I call that the quarantine crazies.
Oh,
This is
no.
the first time I've been without a beard in, what, 2 years?
Yeah, it's been years.
Most time I've cut it off before, but I always start growing it back the very next day.
Yeah.
And I've already had it off for like a week, and my hair is getting long,
Look like Wolverine from the X-Men.
like Wolverine. Yeah. But, I'm following the rules. I am following the rules, and my office is following the rules. The law offices of Vic Feazell, we can sign you up. We can handle your lawsuit without you ever having to leave home.
That's true.
We did another videotape deposition just this week.
True.
Yeah.
It's
And so
awesome.
that's the second or third one we've done. We're still trying to get some video mediation set up, but when we have forced them in that direction, they went ahead and settled without the mediation. So we'll see if that keeps going. If not, we've reached out to some video mediation services, and I'm also thinking about maybe doing some video mediation.
I think you'd be a great mediator.
I just don't know if I have the time. I am certified. I did go through the training. I have my 40-hour certificate. I did it so that I would know better what to do when I'm in mediation.
Yeah, that's
But
smart.
I am
Smart.
a licensed mediator.
Mhm.
And if we start doing mediations online, I might put myself out there to maybe do 1 or 2 a month.
You should. You should.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm kind of like Solomon,
Oh,
although nobody would understand Solomon today.
I
There'd
don't
be
understand
massive
Solomon.
headlines. Impeach Solomon. He suggested cutting a baby in half. That's the way the press is now. He said cut a baby in half. Do we want somebody leading our country who would cut a baby in half?
Did
That's
he
just
really
the
say
way
to
our
cut a
press
baby
is.
in? But did he tell somebody to cut a baby in half?
Oh, Jonathan.
Did he tell somebody to cut a baby in half?
Oh, Jonathan.
I don't know. I don't know the story of Solomon. Did he tell somebody did he cut a baby in half?
Jonathan was a very wise king. There were these 2 women. They both had infant children. One of the women, her child died. And so she stole the other woman's baby.
Hmm.
The other woman wanted her baby back. And she said, no, this is my baby. It's not
I
yours.
want my
It's
baby
mine.
back, baby back, baby back.
Yes. So they ended up in front of King Solomon. And one lady said, it's my baby. And the other one said, no, it's my baby. And King Solomon goes, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll cut the baby in half and give half to each of you.
I got you. I
And
got
the
you.
real mother said, no,
Of course.
let her have it, let her. And then King Solomon knew who the real mother was.
Interesting.
Yeah,
It's a
wisdom,
good story. It's a good story.
wisdom. But the press today would have eaten Solomon up. They would have lied about him. They would have demanded that he be dragged from office because he's promoting child abuse.
There you go. There you go.
And I'm watching TV right now. I got nothing better to do at night. I'm working a lot during the day. Sometimes I have to set my alarm so I'll remember to get up and walk around. But I started watching Waco
Yes.
on Netflix.
It's finally hit.
It's finally hit Netflix, just like we had to wait for Confession Killer forever and ever and ever and ever, and it finally got here. And it's about Waco. Well, now we have this other one about Waco, and it's called Waco, and it's about the Branch Davidians.
Hmm.
It's about the ATF assault on the Branch Davidian compound.
Right.
Jonathan, we've talked about this. I knew some of those guys.
You did. You did.
I actually knew David Koresh. I knew him when his name was Vernon Howell.
Right.
I knew Wayne, the black attorney from Harvard. I can't recall his last name right offhand. I'll Google it after a while. But he was a Harvard graduate. I mean, regardless of what Legally Blonde says, it ain't easy to get in Harvard. You know, it's not. She goes, remember, like it's hard? It is hard to get in Harvard. And I talked on more than one occasion with Wayne and with David Koresh and with somebody else that they brought to the office. They knew that I preached at different churches around town, and I was the district attorney.
Mm-hmm.
And they came to see me 2 or 3 different times, and when we would talk about the Bible. Now, David was a lot more sane when I knew him. And I'm not saying he went insane. I'm not saying that. But he wasn't so fanatical when I knew him.
Yeah.
But he did ramble a lot about the book of Revelations. And he
Right.
quote Revelations, chapter and verse, and quote it and quote it and quote it. And I was always saying, yeah, guys, but let's look at what the red stuff says. Go back in that Bible and read what Jesus says. Not all this Revelation stuff. That Revelation stuff is the end time. You believe that, you're going to experience that. I said that to those guys. And that's basically what happened.
Yeah.
They were preparing for the end times. David was trying to interpret the 7 seals in the book of Revelation, the opening of the 7 seals. And there may be something to that, but it's way over my head. And when people start rambling on about that, it's over everybody's head.
Yeah.
That's why I kept saying, talk about the red stuff.
Yeah.
The red stuff, for those of you who've never opened a Bible, the red stuff, that's Jesus's words. In a lot of the versions of the Bible, they'll put all of Jesus's words in red, like they used to. Remember calendars? When we used to have paper calendars? Yeah, they would put the holidays on the calendar in red. Right. So we put Jesus's words in red. And so I knew those guys, and even had to prosecute some of them one time when they got into a shootout with crazy old George Roden, who had run the Davidians before Vernon Howell.
Oh, wow.
And George really was a nut. George ended up in Rusk Hospital for the Criminally Insane.
Whoa.
Yeah, he had dug up the wife of the former leader of the Davidians. It might have even been his mother. Her name was Annie or Anna. And he dug her up. She was dead. And he was trying to raise her from the dead. And he challenged Vernon Howell to a contest of whoever can raise her from the dead is the real leader of the Davidians.
No way.
Yeah, way.
Oh, man.
And
that's wild.
It was pretty wild.
Ooh.
And so Koresh and some of his guys, or Vernon and some of his guys, they decided they were going to go rescue Annie and rebury her. And so they took their rifles and tried to sneak in there to get her, and George saw them, and they got into a shootout. And,
that's crazy.
One of them shot, and it hit a tree next to George, and something came off the tree and hit his finger, and he got hurt. And so, criminal charges were brought, and it went to a jury trial. I didn't try it. I assigned one of my assistants to try it. It was a real interesting case, though. I mean, we lost that case. They were found not guilty on everything.
Wow.
All 7 of them that were prosecuted for going out and trying to rescue Annie. And the only reason they got charged is because George is the one that got hurt. If one of them had gotten hurt, then they'd have probably arrested George.
Yeah.
Neither of them were able to raise Annie from the dead.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise.
That's crazy.
Here's the important thing. When the decision was made to arrest David and 6 of his followers over that shootout, Sheriff Jack Harwell in Chief Deputy Dan Weinberg, and we've talked about them a lot on this podcast. They were
Yep.
good friends of mine, great men, helped me a lot with the Henry Lucas case.
Right.
They went out to the gate with some of their deputies. They radioed back, because this was before cell phones, and had somebody at the sheriff's office call in and say, we're here at the gate and we have a search warrant and an arrest warrant. You know what the Davidians did?
Open the gate and let them in.
Exactly. They opened the gate, they let them in. All their weapons were seized. At least we thought all their weapons. The next day, Sheriff Harwell got a call from David and said, hey, Sheriff, I don't want us to get in trouble. I don't want you to be in trouble, but y'all missed a room with 12 guns in it.
Wow.
Well, they went back the next day and got those other 12.
Yeah.
You know, none of them were illegal. None of them. None of the guns were illegal that they found after the fire.
Right.
All that was just an ATF publicity stunt gone
Right.
bad.
Right.
Those guys out there, and they were young. Most of them were in their 20s and early 30s, and then there are some really old ladies out there and a couple of older men. After this was over, even the old women got sent to prison.
That's crazy.
Even the old women. And there's a name that comes up in this case that we've heard a lot too, Walter Smith. He was
Right.
the trial judge that sent even those old women to prison.
Wow.
Yeah. Walter Smith, who tried to send me to prison. Walter Smith, who got removed from office because of his sexual misconduct.
Right.
But because he's a federal judge and they're like royalty, he's still drawing full retirement.
Really?
Full
Wow,
pay.
man. All
Even
the
though
damage he's done.
All the damage he's done, all the lies he's told, all the meanness he's committed. And he's drawing full retirement. It's just not right.
Yeah, this is not right. Mm-mm-mm.
There's another name that comes up a lot in my situation that comes up with the Davidians.
What's that?
That's Bill Johnston.
Oh, Bill.
Oh, Bill.
We can talk a little bit about Bill today, too, in our
Yeah,
timeline.
when we get back to the timeline, we can talk about Bill. When Bill helped him come after me, see, Bill had worked for me. I hired him right out of law school, but he just wasn't very talented. I kept having to demote him until he was finally in the hot check department, and he couldn't even handle that right.
Really?
Really. I wouldn't trust him to try, a loose dog case. I wouldn't. So he ended up over at the police department as their police legal advisor. And he did everything he could to try to get me. Secret meetings, taping my phone calls, and he was in the very first meeting at the Ramada Inn with Charles Duncan and
Right.
with Lon Boyder in
Right.
April. And when we left off on the timeline, we were still in April 1985. The grand jury had just broke for 2
Right.
weeks. They were on recess. And that's when Boyder and Bill Johnston met with Charles Duncan from Channel 8 in Dallas, and they started their smear campaign of me
Right.
before our grand jury could even get back to the courthouse. Everybody on that grand jury knew about what was going on.
Right.
They came back to the courthouse for the next grand jury meeting because Charles Duncan was running around town telling everybody that the feds were investigating Vic Feazell and that Channel 8 was investigating Vic Feazell and that I had done all this terrible wrong stuff. They couldn't figure out what exactly yet, but all this terrible wrong stuff. Well, anyway, they used Bill to try to help them get me. Bill's reward for that was that he was made an assistant U.S. attorney.
Wild.
Assigned to Waco.
Yep.
The first one Waco had ever had. Before then, it was Jan Patterson, but she was only here part-time. She actually lived in Austin and covered Austin most of the time when she wasn't sucking up to the task force, the Lucas task force in Georgetown. Bill Johnston was the assistant U.S. attorney who drafted the search warrant for the Davidian compound based on lies. The thing was so full of lies, it looked like that Davidian front door. It had so many holes in it.
Jeez.
And then he was involved too later in helping to hide evidence and dispose of evidence that the feds had used incendiary devices on
Right.
those old people, those women, and those children. That they used a tear gas that has been outlawed by the Geneva Convention because it's flammable, it's incendiary.
There you go.
Bill Johnston was after the shootout. He was in the command tent when the shooting started. He was out there with them, standing there when the shooting started. And then he was one of the prosecutors who prosecuted and sent to prison those poor people who survived, who had lost children, grandchildren, husbands, wives, and for no reason.
No reason whatsoever, other than them trying to flex their muscles and messed up.
Exactly. So that was Bill Johnston. And talk about karma. Bill Johnston later got indicted himself by the feds for covering up some of that information when Congress started looking at what was going on. He got indicted for lying to Congress. Now, they tried to send me to prison for 80 years for speaking out against them.
Yep.
And I was found not guilty. And when I was found not guilty, the state bar then came after me and tried to take away my law license.
Right.
I had to fight that. Bill Johnston was their scapegoat. There were a lot of people that should have been indicted over the Davidian thing. He was their scapegoat. And he got 2 years probation. And even though he pled guilty to obstructing justice, to
my God,
something of a felony, some kind of something felony, some kind of federal charge, which involves lying. You know, he admitted that he lied about it and he withheld evidence. And the state bar did nothing to him.
it's crazy.
Nothing. He didn't even file a complaint.
People died.
People
And he
died.
gets nothing.
I was found not guilty, and they came after me. He lied. He hid evidence. He got probation and no problem with the state bar.
It's insane.
And all kinds of people like Texas Monthly, and I think they're some of the biggest idiots that ever lived. Texas Monthly did this heartthrob story about him, you know, poor old Bill. Bullshit. He should have done some time for what he did.
Yeah.
All of those men should have done some time.
Yeah.
There were people involved in the Davidians that were involved with my case and were involved with Ruby Ridge. We've already talked about Greg Rampton. And the FBI negotiator, he was the only one who had any character. His name was Gary Nesner, Noesner. Google him sometime. He was the only hero in that whole thing. He was trying to get them to calm down. He was trying to get them to wait. He was trying to say there's no reason for it. And he hit the nail on the head. He said, what bothers me is that this is not the FBI that I joined 20 years ago.
Right.
I have seen it become militarized.
Right.
We used to be law enforcement. Now we're military.
Is that just by nature of giving them too much power that they just fit that role? You give us this power, we're going to extend to that level of power that you give us.
Yes.
They just became that.
That is what it is.
And obviously with no checks and balances, if they can get away with doing stuff, they're going to continue to do it.
It's them arranging for themselves to become the deep state. It's them writing the laws, doing the training, making it an us against them thing so they can get all these big weapons. Tanks being used against American citizens.
Yeah, man.
Who had not even committed a federal crime. Gary Nesner had been the negotiator out at Ruby Ridge, and they ran him off from Ruby Ridge just as he was about to accomplish something. And that's when they killed the people at Ruby Ridge.
Right.
And then Randy Reaver at Ruby Ridge, the guy they were after, who surrendered after they had killed his wife and another relative. And he was found guilty of one minor crime, which was failure to appear in court for another thing way back then.
Wow.
Yeah, just a failure to appear. The kind of thing where they usually just revoke your bond and go get you, you know, or revoke your bond and tell you to come in. You know, have your bondsman go get you. You know, that's what bond is for. So, and then Gary Nessner was the negotiator at the Davidians, and after 25 days, they ran him off. They decided, no, we don't want to talk them out. Because by then it was becoming evident who fired the first shot.
Right. Right.
And it wasn't the Davidians.
Right.
It was the ATF. And we've talked before, the first victims were the dogs.
Right. Right.
They always kill your dogs first. And it shows that on Waco. They killed their dogs. They killed the dogs at Ruby Ridge. They killed my dog. You know, they're just bastards. And it's sad that we've allowed ourselves to be taken over by this military state. I hope you play, when you edit this, put that sound bite at the beginning where I say, our founding fathers never intended us to have a national police force that could just go after people they didn't like.
Yeah.
I say that on the courthouse steps. So if you can put that in, maybe at the very beginning of this, and then we'll still talk about it right here. You won't even have to cut this out. But show that clip, because I was concerned about it then. And that was before Ruby Ridge.
Right.
That was before the Davidians. And then, even after I'm cleared and found not guilty, and I get the state bar off my butt, then they start coming after me again.
Right. Right. They came and ransacked your storage unit and all that and left the search warrant on the ground.
They did. And so I had Gary Richardson and a guy named Jerry Morris, a really good criminal defense lawyer down in Austin. If you ever need a good criminal defense lawyer in Austin, Jerry with a G. Jerry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know Jerry.
Yeah.
And he was helping to represent me on that. And I was at his office, and we were working on that case in his law library, and the TV was on, and we were watching what was going on with the Davidians the day the fire broke out.
Crazy.
Jerry actually went on to represent a couple of the survivors in the criminal case.
Wow.
Yeah. By then, I was in Italy and Israel and doing things like that, and wasn't able to get involved, or I would have. But Jerry and some of those guys really sacrificed. They didn't make any money for that. They were doing it because it was the right thing to do.
No, did any of the people within the house escape any of the criminal charges that were brought against them?
Only one, and that was David Thibodeau. And David Thibodeau plays a really major role in Waco. And I really think that the only reason David Thibodeau was not prosecuted was because he and his mom hired Gary Richardson.
Oh, there you go.
Yes.
Hey.
And see, and Gary called me, and we were teaming up to represent David Thibodeau. He had not been indicted yet. This was in Walter Smith's court.
Yeah.
And Walter Smith knew what it was like to be in front of me and Gary Richardson.
Yeah. He did a little taste.
He made the mistake of getting on the witness stand during my lawsuit against Channel 8. Channel 8 called him as a character witness against me.
Interesting.
And we're going to post that cross-examination on our website. This might be a good episode to post it with. I was going to save it until we got into the Channel 8 case, but it might be good to just throw it up there on the website so that people can find it. I'll send you a link to it. But Gary Richardson ate his lunch. He ate Walter Smith's lunch. The transcript of his cross-examination of Walter Smith was copied, and it circulated through this county like a virus.
Oh man.
I hate to use that word, a virus,
Oh, yeah.
but we didn't have the internet back then. We didn't have Facebook. If we had, that cross-examination of Walter would have gone viral. So let's put it up. Yeah, and I just think Walter Smith did not want to have to screw with Gary Richardson again.
You may be right.
And he already hated me.
Yeah.
He already hated me. I mean, when we get back to the timeline, we'll talk about how me helping George Allen in his race against Walter Smith for district judge, that was one of the things they talked about in the Ramada Inn meeting.
Wow.
Johnston and all those, because see, they were trying to get something on George Allen too.
Of course.
George Allen had impaneled our grand jury. George Allen had signed the bench warrant that let us go pick up Henry.
Wow.
So they were mad at George too.
Yeah, he was a
and
target
they were
too.
trying to get Jack Harwell.
Wow.
Now there are only three things I didn't like about Waco, the Netflix series.
Yeah.
Number one, the actor that played Jack Harwell. He's a good actor. I'm sure he's a good actor. I don't know his name. He did a good job. But I knew Jack Harwell. Jack Harwell is about a foot taller than that guy, and Jack Harwell did not have a belly.
Oh yeah.
The guy they had playing Jack Harwell looked like that Brimley guy that used to advertise.
Wilfred Brimley?
Yeah, they used to advertise oatmeal,
And like the diabetes?
Yeah. They had a guy that looked like him playing Jack Harwell. And I'm telling you, Jack played a lot of golf. Jack did a lot of farming. Jack was a horse rider. Jack was fit. So, no. But they had his demeanor down. They had Jack Harwell down as a really nice guy, a trustworthy guy. They brought up something about Jack I forgot.
What's that?
He didn't even wear a sidearm.
Interesting.
Jack said he didn't need one. He didn't. Jack could talk his way out of anything. I loved that man. I learned so many good lessons from him. And they brought that out in the show, that Jack was such a trusted guy that he didn't even think he needed a sidearm.
That's amazing.
And when he walked up to the Davidian compound, he was the first one to take him some supplies, because the women got so freaked out, the ones that were breastfeeding, that they quit making milk. Yeah, and their children started starving. And so Steve Schneider and Koresh were able to work out a deal with Gary Nasser to get him 6 gallons of milk. And it was Jack Harwell who walks up to that front door with those 6 gallons of milk and no gun, and hands it to David Koresh and Steve Schneider.
Wild.
So that those women could feed their children. They get the 6 gallons, they put it in the refrigerator. Jack drives back to Waco, to McLennan County. And then you know what the feds did?
Well, they did a number of things, but which one are you talking about?
They turned off the electricity so the milk would go bad.
Oh, that's brutal.
They only got to use about 1.5 gallons of it before the rest went bad. They turned off the electricity, and then they started blaring.
That's right.
The sound of pigs being slaughtered.
Yep.
Nancy Sinatra singing "These Boots Are Made for Walking."
Yeah, I remember that part in particular.
Yeah, she didn't like that, by the way. She complained about that. I think they
weaponized her music.
Yeah, weaponizing Nancy Sinatra. Now that's just dippy. But psychological warfare, using psychological warfare on American citizens who had not committed a federal crime. And they want to talk about, oh, well, he was beating the babies. He was beating the babies. That's bullshit. That is not true, not true, not true. Now, there may have been some other things going on, but it wasn't any kind of child abuse. And there wasn't any sex abuse of little kids. They made a big deal out of, well, when he married his wife, she was only 14 years old. But there was parental consent.
Trippy.
When that makes it legal. When my dad married my mother. She was only 16. My mom was 18 years old when I was born.
Wow.
You know, things are different back then.
Yeah.
Things are just different. And especially if you belong to a Bible thumping, fundamentalist kind of religion, you're kind of stuck back a few hundred years in your thinking. You really are.
That's funny.
And in the Bible, in the Old Testament, polygamy was legal.
Right.
Even in the New Testament, polygamy was legal. They just decided, the governments decided for economic reasons not to make it illegal. They wanted women out working, you know. And even Jesus didn't say it's illegal to have more than one wife. Jesus said, if you're going to be a deacon in the church, don't have more than one wife, because you're going to be too busy. You need to be home taking care of your wives. But if you only have one wife or you don't have a wife, then you can go out and be a deacon and serve the poor, because back then a deacon wasn't just somebody who told the preacher what to do. A deacon wasn't just a troublemaker back then. A deacon was somebody of service, somebody who washed the feet of others, somebody who delivered food to the widows, things like that. And those are the helpers, the ones who did the real work. And Jesus said, if you're going to be a deacon, don't have two wives. It was later when our Western laws started making polygamy illegal.
Can't be double, triple married.
Yeah, and that's why they'll prosecute these guys even out, the Mormons out in Utah, because it's man's law. It's man's law. It's not God's law. I agree with it, because I know I couldn't take care of more than one woman. I know you ever hear the Oak Ridge Boys?
Yes.
Yeah. Trying to love two women is like a ball and chain.
I've never heard that one, but that's funny.
Sometimes the pleasure ain't worth the pain.
Oh, no.
I agree with the Oak Ridge Boys.
Oh,
So,
no.
yeah. So what was done out there in Waco was just absolutely wrong.
It was crazy, Vic.
Destroying evidence, shooting at those people, burning them out. And there's no doubt who fired the first shot. And the front doors would have proven it. But you know what? The front doors ended up missing.
Really?
What was left of them after the fire ended up missing. They were out there bulldozing that stuff. And then they had people like Bill Johnston combing through everything, getting rid of any shred of evidence that could help the Davidians. What the feds did was the same thing that Ken Anderson did to Michael Morton.
Right.
Withheld exculpatory information. The only difference, they're worse than Ken Anderson, because Ken Anderson didn't point a gun at Michael Morton and start trying to shoot him.
Yeah.
Feds pointed a gun at these people, bunch of guns.
It did shoot him.
It did shoot him.
It did shoot him.
A bunch of them.
Oh, Vic. You know, my
right
only...
before the shooting started, as they were coming up with their horse trailers, and they were piling out of it with their rifles pointed at the building, David Koresh saw them coming. He didn't arm the windows. He went out on the porch and said, "Don't do this. Don't shoot. Don't stop." You know, he was ready to surrender right then. But that's when they shot the dog. That's when the guy up on the roof accidentally shot himself in the butt.
Yeah.
And that's when a couple of David's people started shooting out the window.
Right.
And
rest is history.
Rest is really sad history. And I tell you, Gary Nasser said something in there that I really liked. When he said to the head FBI guy, that history is not going to remember you well. It may take a while, but history is not going to remember you well.
Yeah.
So let's spend a lot of time on that later. You know, the comparisons with Ruby Ridge and the comparisons with my case.
Yeah.
Even them destroying David's 66 El Camino.
Yeah, it's still a very valid case to talk about, Vic. And we've talked about this when we first started the podcast, that we ultimately wanted to do a nice series on the whole fiasco. And do you know if there's anybody around in Waco that was a Branch Davidian that would even come on the show, do you think?
I can reach out. I'm a member of the Facebook group of the Branch Davidian survivors. I spoke with David Thibodeau on the telephone maybe 15 years ago. Was the last time I talked with him. He had become a computer programmer and was working in Austin.
Cool.
But yeah, he was the only one that wasn't prosecuted, and I really think that's because Walter Smith did not want Gary Richardson or me, especially Gary Richardson, back in his courtroom.
Yeah, man, there would not be a fair trial.
No, Gary. I really think Gary would have walked them all out of there.
Yeah, that's wild. But I think it's worth doing, Vic, especially if we can get some of those folks on. I think that'd just be awesome. And I know they're probably tired of talking about it, but maybe with this hitting Netflix finally, maybe they'd be willing to clear some stuff up in it, as well as talk about what it's like, so people understand.
And it's this problem we've been talking about all along, is the militarization of law enforcement.
Yeah.
I think we need to, if we're going to fix it, we need to change all the training manuals. We need to get rid of all the law enforcement trainers. We need to bring new people in. We need to bring people in like Gary Nasser and let him do the training. People who are trained in de-escalation instead of trying to escalate things. You got all these steroid freak cops out there now who just want to pick a fight.
Yeah, man.
Now, I say all the time, there are a lot of good ones. There are. But man, the bad ones make it bad for all of them.
That's true.
And it's because of the training where they're taught it's us versus them. One of the top FBI guys in the Waco series was getting mad and griping out Gary, the negotiator, the hostage negotiator, and saying, "You just don't get it. There's one of us to every 5,000 of them. How are we supposed to keep them under control?" One law enforcement officer to every 5,000 citizens. So that is the us versus them mentality.
Yeah.
How do they think they have to keep us under control? It's not about control. It's about law enforcement.
Right.
Right. We need to go back and change the way that they are training these minds. It's a mindset. That's why you'll have a black policeman shoot and kill an unarmed black civilian. They're always like, "Well, I don't get this. The cop was black." Well, not really. He used to be black. But when you go through that training, they strip you down. They take away your ego. It's like going through the Marine Corps training. And you're trained to think like they want you to think.
Sure.
And it's us in blue, and it's them over there. It used to be that the police were part of the community, and they were there to protect and conserve. Protect and serve. Conserve.
Sometimes they recycle.
That would be good too. But now it's control.
Yeah.
It's militarization. And it's too bad that Alex Jones is such a damn nut.
Yeah.
Because hidden in all that craziness he says is a kernel of truth. And
actually, I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah. And that truth is being ignored because of the messenger being
right, because he's so radicalized. Yeah, it's true.
I wish Alex Jones would reach out to me and let me be his therapist, be his guru. Calm him down a little and get him back on message. So he's not getting sued by the parents of poor little dead children out in
Sandy Hook and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. And doing crazy ass stuff like that. Or going down to the state capitol, hugging and kissing on people with the coronavirus.
Well, do you know what's really funny about that? One of my friends is a photographer down in Austin, and he was actually down there photographing these rallies that are going on, and he said Alex Jones was out meeting people and whatnot. He gets back in his like militarized vehicle. The first thing he did is put hand sanitizer all over his hands and arms. He said he wishes he got a picture of him doing that.
Yeah, he showed up in his Humvee. He had his security guards, and then they totally sanitized him when he got back in. He was out there rebel rousing.
Yep.
Stirring up the crowd.
Yep. It's all fake. It's all fake. It gets back in. Oh, God.
We don't need nuts on either side. We don't need nuts stirring up and being rebel rousers over here. And we don't need nuts in our government thinking that all American citizens are criminals trying to overthrow the government.
Right.
Just because we might want to make the government better, just because we might want to change a few laws, just because we want to give some more power to the people and take it away from the corporations that this government and our politicians have sold out to, then they think we're bad.
Yeah.
No, that's why they're writing Thomas Jefferson out of the history books. You read some of the things Thomas Jefferson says, they don't like that anymore.
Yeah.
Because he was too much of a free thinker. He was too much of a libertarian.
Right.
And by that, I don't mean the libertarian political part.
Right.
I mean, as far as he was a free thinker. Yeah.
It's wild, Vic, and there's always going to be the nuts, but it's a matter of the attention that the nuts get, which is the issue. Because, I mean, it's monkey see, monkey do. You and I both know this. Majority of what people see, they accept as truth, and it becomes their doctrine, too. And when you're giving all the attention to the nuts, unfortunately, people start to believe that is the truth and the real doctrine, and they start to follow it and adhere to it and defend it, also known as brainwashing.
That's true. That's exactly true. And that's what's happening. And they're brainwashing our policemen. They're brainwashing the FBI. And there really shouldn't even be an ATF. That should be an arm of the FBI. Yeah. We don't need another military unit out there pulling publicity stunts and killing American citizens. And all this goes back. Where did this begin? Where did the militarization of law enforcement begin? I'll get my tongue straight in a minute. Dwight D. Eisenhower warned us against this in his exit speech when he spoke to Congress. And he was talking about the military-industrial complex.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. Our military organization today bears little relation to that known of any of my predecessors in peacetime, or indeed by the fighting men of World War II. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together.
Right.
Well, we're selling weapons all over the world. And so now they're selling them to our policemen and militarizing our police. And then we've got the domestic spy program, the good old Colonel Jim Adams, former head of the state police of Texas. He had been head of the domestic spy program under J. Edgar Hoover. And that's when all this started about, we got to control these people. We got to keep files on these people. We got to keep these people pushed down. You know, what good is the First Amendment if the truth is going to be stifled and you got all these lies out there that social media will repeat? I'm telling you, people, do us all a favor. Do not repost anything unless you check it out and see if it's legitimate.
Yeah, man.
You'll get somebody putting out some bullshit lie.
Well, and that comes down to the toilet paper, Vic. Now, you know, the whole toilet paper thing started, for those who don't know, was someone on social media posted that face masks are made of the same material as toilet paper, and there's going to be a run on face masks, thus creating a shortage of toilet paper, which was totally false. That was a lie. But it spread and got shared through Facebook and other social media avenues like Twitter and Instagram. And next thing you know, there was a run on toilet paper, all because someone created in their mind the false idea that for some reason the people who make toilet paper also make the face masks, and there's going to be a shortage. It's madness.
It's crazy. People should please check that crap out before you repost it. Because if you don't and you repost a lie, then you're lying too. You're lying too. It's maybe a negligent lie, but it's still a lie. Don't repost it. Even all that crap about what COVID means. China originated viral infectious disease. It does not stand for that at all. It stands for the head, and it means respiratory.
Yeah.
You know, it has nothing to do with China, and the number had nothing to do with the number. None of that. All that was just
crazy.
Made up bullshit to try to get people to hate each other.
So today's message is always do your research. Except
Always
nothing is the
do
truth.
research.
Research yourself.
Exactly. Do that.
And honestly, I think that the people who listen to this podcast, though, Vic, I think that we do have a really intelligent audience. You know, the questions we get, the people who interact with us are relatively smart, man. We have people who I think are like that and listen to this podcast because it dives deeper and they want a deeper truth or meaning. And luckily for us, we have the deeper meaning via the documents, via the archive that we have that you can't dispute. It is how history went down.
It is. We've got the documents and the video to prove it.
We're not shooting from the hip here.
Yeah. And welcome back, listeners. I mean, Jonathan, I'm glad to see you. But man, I wish we could see some of our listeners. I'd still like for us to look into the idea of having as big as we can have Zoom meeting.
Let's do it.
With our listeners. We won't be able to, I think we can only fit in about 100. And we've got listeners all over the world, so we'd have to look at the time frame. But that might be a fun thing to do. But thank you, listeners, for coming back. Thank you for checking out our website. Hey, thanks for buying our coffee.
Yeah, we had to go pick up another big old bag of it for all of our orders this past week. I was shipping them out like crazy.
I know. And thank you for buying our coffee. Thank you for putting on our bumper stickers. And thank you for spreading our message. Our message is transparency. Our message is have the courage to do what's right, not what's easy.
Love it. Do you want to give a shout out real quick, Vic?
Yeah.
Hey, so let's do a shout out to Aaron and Jessica. They're the owners over at MC Art Supply, who we should add them to our intro tag as one of our sponsors because they're so nice.
Let's do that.
And you saw a Facebook post this past week, right, of someone who ordered something from them and got one of our podcast stickers.
I did. I got a picture sent to me from out of town from somebody who said, I've been listening to your podcast, and then I just got this in the mail, totally unrelated. And it was from MC Art Supply.
That's so cool. So thank you, Aaron and Jessica.
Thank you, Aaron and Jessica. We appreciate you a lot. Please keep listening. Tell your friends to listen. Subscribe. And leave us a review. And leave a review, if you can, on the Apple Podcast. I know there are a lot of ways to listen and a lot of ways to leave the review. If you leave it on the Apple Podcast section down there, it gives us a higher rating.
It does help.
It makes it easier for other people to find our show.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's true.
Oh.
Hi, I'm Vic Feazell. During these trying times, you might want to just stay home. And at the law offices of Vic Feazell, we understand. That's why we're set up to handle your personal injury claim without you even having to come in. Just give us a call, and we'll take it from there. We can send any paperwork straight to your smartphone or computer. Don't delay, because if we don't put money in your pocket, you don't owe us anything. I'm Vic Feazell.